Taipei, a busy, bustling metropolis. Thousands of South African tourists annually fly to the city to experience a country and a culture so vastly different from their own. They flock to the temples to witness strange rituals and enjoy the vibrant nightlife of a city that never sleeps. On Friday, 27th November 1987, 140 passengers and 19 crew members arrived at the SAA counter at the airport. The usual rituals of checking in and worrying about overweight luggage were performed. At 14 hours 23 UTC, the Helderberg lifted off from Taipei. The Helderberg was a Boeing 747 Combi incorporating a main deck cargo hold. The first leg of the journey would be to Mauritius, 5,000 miles distant. During the flight, the captain made several routine positional calls from an altitude of 34,000 feet. At 23 hours 50 UTC, a mere 190 nautical miles from Mauritius, the captain contacted air traffic control at Plaisance Airport and reported smoke in the aircraft. At 3 minutes past midnight, communication between the aircraft and Plaisance ceased. There was total silence. Frantic efforts to re-establish contact were to no avail. The Helderberg had been lost. All aircraft and ships in the vicinity were immediately alerted and the search started. During the first few frantic days, the international community rendered a tremendous amount of assistance. French and American aircraft and ships assisted in the initial search. South African Air Force Transals flew in, offloaded the disassembled Puma helicopters and took off again. Time and speed was of vital importance. If there were still any survivors floating somewhere in the Indian Ocean, they had to be found. Working feverishly, South African Air Force technicians set about reassembling the Pumas and fitting long-range fuel tanks, a task which they completed in 8 hours. As soon as the Pumas were ready, they took off to assist the many ships and light aircraft combing the area in the surface search for survivors. One of the vessels involved in the search was the South African naval vessel Jim Forshire. For days, she unflaggingly scanned the silent ocean, picking up floating bodies and debris. The SAS Tafelberg, which sailed from Cape Town within minutes of receiving news of the disaster, arrived in Mauritius. Weary helicopter crews pushed themselves beyond the barriers of exhaustion, and yet the search continued. While there was hope, they remained in the sky, landing only to refuel. Day after day, the sea released bits and pieces of its sad content as debris floated to the surface. In the hangar at Plaisance, a temporary debris center was established. Manned by SAA technical personnel, assisted by the Division of Civil Aviation, they started the unenviable task of sorting and identifying as much of the wreckage as possible. Every scrap of debris had to be packed into containers, which were flown back to Jan Smuts Airport, where a permanent debris center was being established. There, an attempt would be made to fit the pieces of this fatal puzzle together. A team of American underwater salvage experts who assisted in the recovery of the Space Shuttle Challenger arrived on the Omega, which was equipped with a side-scan sonar fish. Jim Whittaker, who was in charge of the operation, explained its function.
Well, we're not relying on the pingers at all. This is a sonar search. This will be literally taking a picture of the bottom with the use of the transducers on this fish here. And it'll show the topography of the bottom and any objects that are on the bottom, such as aircraft wreckage. That'll give us a location. From the location, they'll be marked accurately with the navigation equipment that's on board here. And then a possible retrieval plan will be the next stage, depending on what's found, the condition of it.
With the 9-kilometer cable and the electronic sonar detector fitted, a test dive was performed in the harbor. Assured that everything was in working order, the Omega set out for the target area. Within the vastness of the ocean, they would endeavor to find a speck on the ocean floor, the Helderberg. While the Omega, with her massive electronic equipment on board, continued her search, a definite picture had emerged from the floating debris. A fire had raged through the main deck cargo hold. At Jansmuts Airport, these holes, which contained both the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, were being subjected to close scrutiny. Using the airline's other combi, tests were run to see how effectively firefighting could be performed in the main deck cargo hold. When the hold was loaded according to specification, it proved almost impossible for a person carrying firefighting equipment to move freely between the pallets and control a fire efficiently. Somewhere within this claustrophobic maze of narrow passageways of the Helderberg, a fire had started. During the middle of January, the South African tug Volraad Woltemarder picked up the first electronic signals. The terrain where the signal was picked up resembled an underwater landscape of hills, valleys, and mountain ranges. 4 days after setting out to sea, the Omega located the wreckage site. Exactly 2 months after the Helderberg had been lost, they knew that they would have to attempt recovery operations at a depth of 4,500 meters, something which had never been done before. At the debris center, tests were performed to establish the efficiency of the smoke detectors in the main deck cargo hold. An exact replica containing insulation material, air conditioning ducts, smoke sensors, and alarm systems was constructed, and a smoldering fire set. Then the waiting started. Waiting that felt like an eternity. 44 minutes, 58 seconds after the fire was started, the alarm in Zone 2 was activated. Zone 3 followed 18 seconds later. By this time, with the fire blazing and the smoke so dense that it was impossible to see, the firefighting department had to use hoses to get it under control. In September 1988, the Steno Workhorse and the American firm of underwater salvage experts Eastport International arrived in Mauritius. Operation Resolve was about to begin. A remote operating vehicle, the Gemini, would be lowered to the ocean floor. An umbilical cable attached to the Gemini transmitted the optical images from the attached 35mm and television cameras to the control room. Personnel from Eastport International, SAA, and DCA worked in unison to form a highly skilled and determined team. Even the 4-hour-long descent to the ocean floor was closely monitored. Patiently, they manned the monitors, and as pieces of wreckage came into view, the operators from the deck of the Steno Workhorse, 4.5 kilometers above, maneuvered the Gemini into position so that the cameras could take the best possible photographs for identification. Thousands of photographs were taken, and hundreds of hours of video footage was filmed. With each new photograph, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. On the 28th of November 1988, exactly 1 year after the Helderberg crashed, the first pieces of debris were brought on deck and minutely inspected. Signs of severe heat were evident, as was the case with most of the wreckage subsequently brought to the surface. With personnel working shifts, the work continued day and night, and yet the most vital pieces of evidence, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, evaded them. These polystyrene cups, which were immersed with the Gemini, provide an indication of the immense pressure to which the equipment was subjected. Divers were often used to guide the cage which contained wreckage to the surface. Bit by bit, the pieces were brought on deck. Every possible section of debris was photo-mapped in order to obtain maximum information from the sections which were not brought to the surface. On January the 6th, 1989, the big breakthrough was made. An object resembling the cockpit voice recorder was spotted. The object was compared to photographs, and at last, a positive identification was made. The black box had been found. It took over an hour of careful maneuvering before the black box was finally gripped in the Gemini's claws and lifted clear of the murky seabed. 4 hours and 10 minutes later, it arrived on deck. The moment of truth had arrived. The container was opened and inspected. It was indeed the black box, and it was intact. After months of endeavor, the crew savored their success. Wreckage which had previously been identified as desirable targets and necessary for the inquiry was brought on deck, inspected, treated against rust, and notated. Every piece of debris showed signs of smoke or fire damage. With each lift, the picture became clearer. This process continued day after day throughout the next 3 months. As soon as the wreckage was processed on board the Stena workhorse, it was forwarded to the debris center in Johannesburg. Here, the mammoth task of identifying each piece and relating it to a specific point on the aircraft was undertaken. A framework of the main deck cargo hold was built to scale, and with a large amount of debris having been collected from this area, the technical team was able to formulate a chilling but clear picture. For more than a year, the debris center remained as a silent memorial to that fatal day, November the 28th, 1987. Thousands of photographs served as a reminder of man's ingenuity and perseverance. On the floor, the painted outlines of the aircraft still had each piece of aircraft debris placed in its exact position, a testimony to the expertise of the technical teams. Within the silence of this emotion-filled hangar, this comforting thought prevails. Much of what has been learnt here will prevent a similar tragedy, and that because of the Helderberg, aviation has progressed another faltering but positive step.